Just happy there's a. Okay, just talk for a second.
There is a side. There's a side to everything.
Yeah. Okay. Good. A little closer. There we go.
Oh, great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good.
I don't have a face for high def.
Okay. All right. So we're running. Yes. Okay. So Jonathan, talk a little bit about what the Wireless Industry Association does.
Well, the Wireless Infrastructure Association represents the entire ecosystem that makes up the wireless network. The HETNet, which is all of the different aspects of carriers, the wireless carriers, the big ones like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, the big companies that have the infrastructure like American Tower, Crown Castle, from small cells to distributed antenna systems to towers, and the systems integrators and service companies that make the network possible. So basically all that hardware network behind your smartphone is represented by WIA.
Okay, and one of the initiatives that you've been working on is densification of networks. What does densification mean?
Well, as the usage goes up dramatically, with people watching video and using, we expect 700% more of the data that they're using today over the next 5 years, networks have to keep up with that. So what they're doing is splitting the cell, so to speak. They're densifying the network so that there's more antennas closer to the end user. And these enable the end user to have the experience that they want, which is they quickly get their downloads, they get connectivity everywhere, they get their calls good quality and they don't get dropped. What happens is if you have too much capacity demand in a particular cell site, it can affect the quality of the service of the end user. So what a carrier will do is put more antennas in that same little spot, and you put 3 antennas up where there was just one within the same little cell, you get a lot more throughput. Instead of going to that one tower, it might go to tower and 2 small cells, so everybody gets served well.
So densification enables a lot more communication. What's the role of the network in the deployment of, say, smart cities and that type of technology?
Well, cities are increasingly looking to wireless networks to improve the quality of their transportation networks, their sanitation networks, their water networks, basically their governmental services to their citizens. They need to have strong connectivity in order to do that. So the real smart cities have smart regulation that enables the companies that are coming in trying to serve that community to put up infrastructure on light poles and on various street furniture that is available to them. It might be a bus stop, it might be a traffic light. You can put all these antennas on the city systems. In exchange, the city might get connectivity for improving traffic flows, for making sure that they know, when to empty a garbage can because they know when it's filled up. Instead of just doing it on a regular basis, they do it when it's full. These things make for more efficient cities. There's less traffic, better flow. It's overall something that cities are looking at increasingly in terms of attracting not only business but happy residents and happy constituents for those elected officials in the cities. But it requires strong wireless networks to really reach its full potential.
Would you say that cities and the controlling regulatory bodies have a better understanding of how important this technology is, or do you think there's still a lot of education that has to take place?
We're seeing more and more support from policymakers on the federal, state, and local level. They're starting to get it. I mean, everybody has these smart devices. They see it themselves. They see it with their families and their kids. They know that this is not a luxury. This is a necessity and part of everyday living. And they don't always realize how big of a network it takes to make that possible. Mm-hmm. But increasingly they're realizing, the price of that is I need to put antennas up everywhere. I need to let that tower function properly. I need to let them put another antenna on there, let them, stick something on our light poles. So not everybody gets it. There's a lot of resistance out there. When it comes to putting fiber up, everybody's fine with that. But you stick an antenna on the end and all of a sudden you get communities going, what's that? A little bit of nervousness, which is not justified at all, because all of these are complying with FCC limits on emissions, and they're perfectly safe. But there's some irrational folks out there that say, not in my backyard, and pretty soon the whole community suffers. The leadership of cities that give into that are finding themselves falling behind, and the majority is angry because they're catering to a handful of folks that don't really have the best interest of the community at heart.
So we obviously had this major administration change. We have a new chairman, Pai, of the FCC. You've had some experience on the FCC. Can you describe a little bit about what you see happening and Chairman Pai's attitude?
I used to be a commissioner at the FCC, and it really matters who is in the leadership. And the new chairman under the Trump administration, Ajit Pai, is a huge advocate of more wireless broadband, and he totally gets that you need more infrastructure in order to do it. So he's looking at ways to eliminate obstacles to the deployment of wireless broadband, looking at how the federal government can streamline its own bureaucratic red tape in order to facilitate the deployment of broadband. And he's just really a friend of the wireless ecosystem. I think he's somebody who understands the need to deploy private capital, and that the government needs to have rules of the road that are consistent and clear. In order to do that, he's going to get rid of some of the overly onerous net neutrality regulations that limited the ability of infrastructure providers like carriers to invest in their networks, because it gives them ways to basically monetize these vast investments they're making. I mean, look, the wireless industry is investing more in infrastructure than any other industry in the United States is investing in infrastructure. They need to have a return on that investment, and it's a highly competitive industry. So when the FCC says, well, you can't do this or you can't do that, or you need to ask permission before you come up with an innovative service, it doesn't help them come up with the revenue need to support these vast investments that they're making. And Chairman Pai gets that.
Well, that's encouraging, and there's a lot of commentary about net neutrality and that's impact. And so you've got the net neutrality issue, and then you have the AT&T Time Warner merger, which would again provide more capability for the network to integrate its content and utilize the network as an asset. Can you comment sort of net neutrality and then AT&T Time Warner? Where are we headed, and how does regulatory get involved or not with that?
Well, the carriers are increasingly looking to content to be integrated providers. We ran out of...
No. Sorry, but that's actually, I should have done that the first time.
Oh.
I can get started on that answer, though, if you don't mind. So can you talk about a little bit about net neutrality and how the FCC might look at the AT&T and the Time Warner and all that combination?
Well, the wireless carriers are living in a very competitive world where you see these ads on television about bills being chopped in half, and you see, the pain commercials. They're just going after each other on price, on service quality. And so the carriers are investing massively in these networks in order to be able to compete on service quality. But they're also finding ways to monetize the investment in their network by trying to agglomerate content. AT&T bought DirecTV, Verizon's looking at Yahoo and bought AOL. They're trying to find ways that they can do that. And the FCC's net neutrality rule was sort of an overhang on that made it difficult for them to see how they would be able to monetize their network. Now I think with the new administration, there's going to be a lot more openness to new business models, innovative business models, being able to use that content. The internet will remain open, but there might be an advantage for somebody who can see certain content for free, for example. This new FCC saying free content is good. The previous FCC was actually saying, hey, you can't give that away for free if it's your own proprietary data. Well, those days are, I think, gone now. And so there's new opportunities, I think, for them to find a way to justify the big investments that they're making, and hopefully invest even more in wireless infrastructure so we can meet the vast data needs of the population. They're growing every minute.
So the other speculation out there is perhaps Sprint and T-Mobile, and we've seen President Trump make an announcement about Sprint's investment in making America great again. Do you think the FCC and the regulatory bodies are going to be more open to that sort of consolidation where maybe they weren't in the last administration?
Well, there's a lot of different partners that are being looked at for major carriers like T-Mobile or Sprint. The cable companies are looking at them. They're looking at each other. They're looking at content companies and vice versa. It's a wide open M&A world in telecom right now, and I don't think it's easy to predict exactly what's going to happen. But I think it is easy to say that I think there is a more permissive attitude towards antitrust in this administration than we had in the previous administration, which killed a number of mergers. While it did approve others. I think right now people are thinking that this administration is going to be more open. Certainly the FCC leadership has said that it doesn't want to put all kinds of onerous conditions on these mergers that aren't related to the harms from mergers themselves. So I think the FCC approvals are going to come a lot easier than they did. There will be antitrust enforcement at the Justice Department, but it's only going to be for truly anti-competitive mergers, and not some of these, vertical issues aren't going to be as big of a concern as they might have been under the previous administration.
So if you were to sum up, where's all this going? What's the future for the wireless industry, and do you see high growth? Do you see consolidation? What are some of the trends that you think we should expect?
Well, the wireless industry is, you would think, in a great position when you see any business that's saying we're going to get to be able to sell 700% more of what we sell over the next 5 years. The problem is you've seen the wireless industry faced with vast increase in amount of data that they've supplied to their customers, and their ARPU has actually gone down in many cases over that same period. So how do they actually monetize that when they're in a highly competitive, commoditized world? They're looking at innovative solutions. There's new opportunities coming online with the Internet of Things, where there's a new revenue stream potentially coming in as more and more devices get connected. Smart cities are coming about that are going to be a new market for folks. I think every business in America has already been impacted dramatically by mobility, but it's just beginning. I mean, everybody expects mobility now. It's just accepted, whereas a few years back, people were trying to figure out how they can compete or can they get into that space. Now it's a priority. Yes, you have to. So it's a growing industry. The question is, what are the new business models that enable them to grab enough revenue to justify these vast investments in infrastructure? And I think we're going to see them. I mean, inevitably the customers are going to demand this kind of connectivity. They're going to have to pay the freight in order to get it done. New customers are coming about. New markets are opening. Carriers are well positioned. Other companies are sprouting up to provide that kind of service. IoT companies like Ingenue. So it's a really dramatic new era in wireless, an exciting new frontier that is even exciting for an industry that's constantly been growing and changing.
So connected car and autonomous car is going to rely on wireless infrastructure. Is that right?
Yeah, another big new market is connected car, and the need for seamless connectivity of very high data rates in order to make the streets safe. It's not just a little ping from a 30 kilobit connection from a Pepsi machine saying is there enough soda left in a certain bin. It's about what is going to make the streets safe and make them operate. So 5G, the next generation of wireless, is going to enable all kinds of things that we can't even imagine today, with a huge amount of data required. Connected car being the most obvious example, but there'll be so many more that we haven't thought of. I mean, self-driving cars are something that seemed like science fiction only a few years back, and we're on the cusp of it today. So who knows what's next, but we're going to be, as an industry, providing the connectivity that's going to enable vast changes, not just in our industry, but in every other segment of the economy.
Great. I'm going to ask you the smart city question again. I want to just make sure I get that one. Can you describe the role of wireless?
Is there anything else I should say in that I didn't say?
No, you were right there. I just wanted to have it said one more time, just in case there was a problem, because that's the next thing I'm going to cut. So I'd love to get you there. The role of wireless in this development of the smart city infrastructure, how does that play?
Well, a lot of cities are getting it, that they need to be smarter. They need to have wireless infrastructure that enables them to have better streetlights to enable traffic flow, garbage collection, water systems, public safety. They want to be able to have integrated control over all these things and their services to the public. In order to do that, though, they have to have smart regulation in order to have smart cities. A lot of cities want this kind of connectivity, but they don't put the regulations in place, or they make it very difficult for service providers to be able to deliver what they're looking for through complex procurement procedures, antiquated systems for siloing all these different departments that should be working together in an integrated fashion. Increasingly, carriers and other service providers are trying to offer cities simpler and simpler solutions. To the degree that cities can't actually adopt them, I think we're going to see vast transformation in the landscape of how services are delivered by cities. It'll be more efficient. It'll be better for the end user. It'll improve the quality of life in cities. Even take, for example, garbage cans that are filling up. As soon as they fill up, you can pick them up. Instead of having trucks roll through, making noise every morning at 4 a.m., they should go only when that bin is full and it's actually necessary. So you take that big truck off the street, you enable all kinds of services like that, better traffic flow, not just for those types of applications, but the way the streetlights work at different hours, recognizing what's actually happening on the roads. I mean, there's a vast new frontier here that is going to require a lot of infrastructure, and the smart cities are the ones that invite the cities in, invite infrastructure in an intelligent way. Maybe I better repeat that last sentence.
Yeah, because that was a definite sentence. Yeah, that was a killer.
Smart cities are the ones that invite, in an intelligent fashion, the infrastructure providers in so that they can get the services they need to their citizens.